I dedicated 5 years of my life to a company that called me family, only to watch my boss drive a new Porsche the same week he cut my salary in half. But what he never suspected, this loyal coding monkey had already discovered his $3 million secret hidden in a password-protected folder, evidence that would bring his entire empire crashing down within 48 hours. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I stared at the salary reduction form in front of me, my signature still wet on the paper, my future suddenly uncertain. That was me, Michael Chin, senior software engineer with 7 years of experience, and, until that moment, the naive belief that loyalty to a company actually meant something. I still remember my first day at ByteForge Technologies. The office barely qualified as professional, just 10 desks crammed into a converted warehouse space, the constant drip from a leaky ceiling pipe providing our background music. Frank Martin, the CEO, walked me through with unchecked enthusiasm, his sleeve-rolled white shirt already showing sweat stains though it wasn't even noon. "Michael," he said, gripping my shoulder, "we're not just building software here. We're building a family. Every line of code you write, every problem you solve, it all becomes part of our shared success story." I believed him. God, did I believe him? When Cisco tried to poach me with a 30% higher salary and stock options that same year, I declined without hesitation. My wife thought I was crazy. ByteForge is building something special, I told her. Frank says we'll all share in the success. Money isn't everything. Those words would come back to haunt me in ways I couldn't imagine and lead me to discover a betrayal that would change everything. Over the next 5 years, I architected ByteForge's flagship platform, a secure integration system that helped skyrocket company revenue from $2 million to over $50 million annually. My code became the company's backbone. Clients requested me by name. Frank introduced me at investor meetings as the wizard who makes the impossible happen. I wore those words like a badge of honor, even as they became my prison sentence. The first warning signs appeared so gradually I nearly missed them. Closed-door executive meetings that used to include me now happened behind my back. The finance team would abruptly change subjects when I approached their lunch table. Frank's weekly coffee chats with me, once sacrosanct, became monthly, then quarterly, then when things slowed down. Then came that fateful afternoon. Walking past the HR director's office, I caught fragments of her phone conversation, restructuring personnel costs across all technical departments. I barely noticed the chill that ran down my spine. Corporate jargon, nothing more. Little did I know those words would set in motion a chain of events that would expose the ugly truth behind our company's success. Everything changed the Tuesday Frank burst into the engineering department, face flushed with excitement. "We've landed Global Tech," he announced to the room. Global Tech International, a Fortune 500 company whose business could transform ByteForge from successful startup to industry powerhouse. Frank beckoned me into his newly renovated office, all glass and chrome now, a far cry from the converted warehouse days. "Michael, this is our moment," he said, opening a bottle of 25-year-old scotch I knew cost more than my monthly car payment. "I need you to lead this project. It's demanding, but when this succeeds, everyone wins." He raised his glass in a toast to shared success. I didn't notice how he emphasized when, not if this succeeds. I didn't notice he said everyone wins rather than specifying exactly who. Details matter, as I would later discover at devastating personal cost. The Global Tech project consumed me entirely. My alarm blared at 5 a.m. daily. I'd kiss my sleeping wife goodbye, her face illuminated only by my phone's flashlight, and return home 16 hours later to find her already asleep again. 14-hour days became my minimum. Weekends disappeared from my calendar. The technical challenges were monstrous. We needed to build a secure platform handling 10 million transactions per minute without a millisecond of downtime. My development team and I colonized the main conference room, covering the walls with diagrams and sticky notes, the table permanently littered with energy drink cans and takeout containers. We called it the war room. Some nights, I slept under the table rather than waste 40 minutes driving home. "Michael, you're killing yourself," warned Dave, my lead back-end developer, after finding me asleep at my keyboard at 4 a.m., my screensaver bouncing between lines of unfinished code. "It's temporary," I assured him, the dark circles under my eyes telling a different story. "This project changes everything for all of us." The human cost mounted. I missed my wife's birthday for the first time in our 8-year marriage. Our anniversary passed with only a hurried text message. When my brother graduated with his master's degree, an event I had promised to attend no matter what, my empty seat in the family section spoke volumes. "Michael is a machine" became the office refrain. My team followed my example, pushing themselves beyond reasonable limits. We shared a collective delusion that our sacrifice would be rewarded proportionally. That invisible ledger of give and take, of loyalty exchanged for security, we believed it existed, though we'd never seen evidence of it. What none of us realized was that our extraordinary effort was being leveraged for something much darker than company growth. 97 days after starting, we delivered. Not just on time, but with additional security features that made global tech executives actually applaud during our final presentation. Their CTO, a woman known for her brutal technical assessments, declared our work revolutionary and immediately proposed expanding the original contract. By that afternoon, they had signed an additional 3-year agreement worth $30 million. Back at ByteForge headquarters, Frank embraced me in front of the entire company. "You made this happen," he whispered, his expensive cologne almost overwhelming. "Just wait for the bonus announcement next week." For the first time in months, I left work at 5 p.m. I bought my wife orchids, her favorite, and a bottle of champagne. That night, as we sat on our apartment balcony watching the sunset, I made promises. We'll finally take that trip to Japan. Maybe look at houses closer to the city. All that time away, it's about to pay off. She smiled cautiously, having heard versions of this before. I couldn't blame her skepticism, but this time felt different. The project had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. My reward would surely match my contribution. If only I knew what was coming next. Monday morning arrived with a calendar notification. Compensation discussion. 10 a.m. Frank's office. HR present. My heart leapt. This was it. The recognition of my work. The payoff for those endless nights. I wore my best suit, the one I'd bought for industry award ceremonies, but rarely had occasion to use. My wife had even ironed my lucky blue tie. The executive floor had recently been renovated. Thick carpeting that silenced footsteps, genuine artwork on the walls, a dedicated barista making custom espresso drinks in the waiting area. Everything screamed success and prosperity. Our success. Our prosperity. Or so I thought. Frank's office door stood open. Behind his massive desk, crafted from a single slab of reclaimed redwood, he sat reviewing documents. Beside him, Vanessa from HR clutched her tablet like a shield. Neither looked up immediately when I entered. "Michael," Frank finally acknowledged, gesturing to the chair opposite his desk. "Have a seat." No smile. None of his usual backslapping camaraderie. First, he began. "Straightening papers that didn't need straightening. I want to acknowledge your contribution to the global tech project." It was significant. The pause stretched uncomfortably. My collar suddenly felt too tight. However, Frank continued, slipping into what I'd later recognize as practiced corporate doublespeak. ByteForge is at a critical growth inflection point. We need to optimize our resource allocation and enhance our financial sustainability metrics. After careful consideration, we've made some difficult but necessary decisions. My stomach clenched. Nobody uses that many buzzwords to deliver good news. Effective immediately, we're adjusting your compensation package. Your base salary will be reduced by 50%. The room tilted. Blood rushed to my ears, muffling Frank's continued explanation. 50%? Half my income vanished with a single sentence. My mind raced through calculations, mortgage payments, car loans, my wife's student debt we were still paying down, the medical bills from her emergency surgery last year. It's temporary, Frank assured me, finally meeting my eyes. Maybe 6 months, a year at most. You still have your stock options, which could be quite valuable when we eventually go public. Times are tough, and we're all making sacrifices. I wanted to ask if his salary had also been cut in half. If the executive team was taking the same temporary reduction. If the barista I'd just passed was working for half pay too. But shock rendered me mute. 7 years of programming experience, and suddenly I couldn't form a simple query. Vanessa slid a document across the polished desk. Please sign here to acknowledge the change. My hand moved automatically, signing away half my livelihood. What choice did I have? The tech industry was experiencing layoffs. Finding a new position would take time our savings couldn't cover, especially with my wife's ongoing medical treatments. I walked out of that office feeling hollow, my footsteps silent on the plush carpet that suddenly seemed to mock everything I'd helped build. But this story isn't about how I got beaten down. It's about what happened next. The final revelation arrived 3 days later. Still numb from the salary cut, I pulled into the company parking lot at my usual early hour. A gleaming silver Porsche 911 Turbo, price tag north of $170,000, sat in the reserved spot beside Frank's name. The temporary paper tag indicated it had been purchased within the past week. The same week my salary had been slashed for budget constraints and shared sacrifice. I sat in my aging Honda, staring at that Porsche, something cold and hard crystallizing in my chest. It wasn't just anger. It was clarity, sudden and complete. All those words about family and shared success, they were just manipulative fiction. A script to extract maximum effort for minimum compensation. That evening, working late despite my reduced value to the company, old habits die hard, I passed the partially open door of the executive conference room. Frank's voice carried clearly. The restructuring is just phase 1. Once we replace the senior engineers with the offshore team in Bucharest, we'll cut costs by another 60%. The clients will never know the difference. I froze mid-step. It wasn't just my salary. They were planning to replace us all. The same team that had just delivered the company's largest contract. We weren't family. We weren't even valued employees. We were temporary resources being squeezed for maximum output before disposal. At that moment, something in me changed forever, and what I was about to discover would change everything else. Something fundamental shifted in me that night. The loyal trust in the system Michael died, replaced by someone more calculating, more determined. I didn't simply want answers anymore. I needed them. At 7 p.m., after the executive floor had emptied, I began my investigation. As technical lead, I had administrative access to systems most employees couldn't touch, access that, in their rush to restructure, no one had thought to revoke. The building felt eerily quiet, my keyboard clicks echoing down empty hallways. Every distant sound, the cleaning crew's vacuum, the HVAC system cycling on, sent adrenaline coursing through me. Discovery would mean immediate termination, possibly legal action. But something stronger than fear drove me forward. First stop, the HR database. My suspicions were quickly confirmed. Every senior engineer had received identical adjustments, 40 to 50% salary reductions across the board. But the executive compensation packages told a different story. Frank's salary had increased 70% in the past quarter alone. A new performance bonus structure guaranteed him at least $1.5 million annually regardless of company performance metrics. My screen glowed blue in the darkened office as I dug deeper. Email exchanges between Frank and a consulting firm in Romania detailed plans to replace our entire engineering team. The timeline? 3 months, just enough time to extract our knowledge and transfer it to developers billing at 1/3 our already reduced rates. They weren't just cutting our pay, they were stringing us along until our replacements were trained. At 11:23 p.m., a security guard made his rounds. I quickly switched screens to a development environment, nodding casually as he passed. My heart pounded so violently I feared he might hear it. "Working late again, Michael?" he asked. "Always," I replied with a false smile I hoped looked genuine. After he'd gone, I discovered something that made everything else seem trivial. A password-protected folder labeled GDI Special caught my attention, GTI being our internal code for global tech. Using my developer credentials, I managed to bypass the security after several attempts. What I found next would change the trajectory of not just my career, but the entire company. The contents made me physically ill. Real estate documents for a $2.5 million beachfront property in Malibu. Purchased by Frank just 1 week after the global tech contract signing. The down payment? $750,000. Source of funds? A special consulting fee of $3 million built into the global tech contract that had never appeared in our project budget. I scrolled through photos of a stunning modernist house with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific, an infinity pool, a home theater, a wine cellar, all purchased with money that should have funded our bonuses, our raises, our team expansion. Money we had earned through countless sleepless nights and personal sacrifices. The global tech contract contained a $3 million line item for specialized technical consulting that never appeared in our internal budgets. Frank had created a shell company called ByteForge Advanced Consulting with himself as the sole proprietor. He'd effectively siphoned $3 million directly from the deal into his personal accounts. Most damning was an email where Frank joked with his personal financial advisor about the coding monkeys who will never know where the money went. That was us, the people working 80-hour weeks to fulfill his promises. Coding monkeys. Sunrise painted the office windows orange as I finished downloading everything to an encrypted drive. Contracts, emails, bank transfers, property records, the complete paper trail of deception. This wasn't just unfair business practice. It was fraud, misappropriation of funds, deception of investors, the board, and clients. As morning light flooded the still empty office, exhaustion competed with a strange sense of peace. This wasn't just about my salary anymore. It was about justice for everyone who'd been betrayed, my team, our families, even our clients who believed they were paying for fairly compensated talent. I slipped the encrypted drive into my pocket and headed home to shower before the workday officially began. My wife noticed something different immediately. "You look determined," she said, studying my face. "Did something happen?" "Not yet," I replied. "But it will." I had the evidence. Now I needed a plan. I approached this like any critical software architecture problem, methodically, with careful planning and redundant systems. First, I reached out to 4 senior engineers who'd suffered the same salary reductions. We met at a coffee shop 3 miles from the office, a place no ByteForge employee ever frequented. The small table in the back corner barely contained our collective anger as I revealed what I'd discovered. Dave, our back-end architect, removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes in disbelief. I knew something was off, but this. Sarah, our QA lead, whose medical leave had been cut short by project necessities, turned visibly pale. Maya and Raj exchanged glances that communicated volumes. "We have options," I told them, keeping my voice low despite the cafe's ambient noise. "We can walk away, find new jobs, and let this continue. Or we can fight back." "Fighting back could cost us everything," Sarah cautioned. "Our reputations, references, maybe even legal trouble. And doing nothing costs us what?" Mai countered, her voice tight with controlled anger. Our careers are already in jeopardy. He's replacing us in 3 months anyway. The decision was unanimous, though not without reservation. We would fight, but intelligently. We created a secure communication channel using an encrypted messaging app, naming our group chat Project Integrity with grim humor. We developed a 3-phase plan that would turn the tables on those who thought they held all the power. Phase 1. Document everything. We distributed the evidence collection tasks based on our access levels and expertise. Dave, with his back-end database knowledge, gathered financial records showing the discrepancy between reported project costs and actual expenditures. Sarah, whose QA role gave her access to client communications, found emails where Frank had misrepresented team size and composition to justify higher rates. I discovered that the budget constraints forcing our salary cuts coincided with a $2 million executive floor renovation, complete with imported Italian furniture and a wine cellar stocked with bottles averaging $500 each. Raj made perhaps the most shocking discovery. Frank had been systematically taking credit for technical innovations developed by our team. Patent applications filed under his name included algorithms and processes we had created, intellectual property worth millions in potential licensing revenue. Phase 2. Secure our position. We updated our resumes and quietly reached out to industry contacts. Not to leave immediately, but to create safety nets. We archived personal emails, backed up performance reviews, and documented our contributions to major projects. Evidence of our value that couldn't be erased. We also consulted with Catherine Shaw, an attorney specializing in corporate whistleblower cases. Her downtown office, with its wall of successful case settlements, provided our first real sense of validation. You have substantial evidence of financial misconduct, she confirmed after reviewing our documents. But corporate retaliation against whistleblowers is almost guaranteed. They'll attack your performance, your character, anything to discredit you. Are you prepared for that? We exchange looks around her conference table. We have to be, I finally answered. Phase 3. Strategic exposure. This generated our most heated debate. Dave advocated for immediate, public disclosure. Send everything to tech journals, the SEC, and every client. Burn it all down, he argued, still furious about the offshore replacement plan that would eliminate the team he'd spent years building. And then what? I countered. 200 ByteForge employees lose their jobs overnight, including people who had nothing to do with this. We become known as company killers. Is that justice? Sarah, always the voice of precision, proposed a more targeted approach. The board of directors, the majority investors, they have the power to remove Frank and institute real change. After hours of debate, we reached consensus. I would prepare a comprehensive report with all evidence, clear, factual, unemotional. Just the verifiable truth about financial mismanagement and employee exploitation. Our request, an independent financial audit and immediate leadership review. But before sending it, I wanted to give Frank one last chance to explain himself. Call it a misguided sense of fairness, or perhaps I needed to hear him try to justify his actions. I requested a meeting to discuss my future with the company. What Frank didn't know, I had already set the stage for a confrontation he couldn't possibly win. The meeting was scheduled during our monthly all-hands gathering. Frank probably thought the public setting would prevent any uncomfortable conversations. He couldn't have been more wrong. What Frank didn't know, I had spoken with Global Techa's CTO the previous evening. Not to reveal everything, but to ask one critical question. Was your team aware of a $3 million consulting fee in your contract for technical services beyond what our team provided? His confused silence told me everything. There's no additional consulting component. We're paying for your team's expertise directly, he finally replied. Is there something I should know, Michael? Not yet, I answered carefully. But soon. The all-hands meeting filled our largest conference room, 200 employees, the executive team, and 2 board members who happened to be in town. The air conditioning strained against the body heat of so many people packed together. Frank stood at the front, delivering his usual mix of selective financial highlights and motivational platitudes. And with our successful delivery of the global tech project, ByteForge has entered a new era of opportunity, he proclaimed, deliberately catching my eye. Though we've had to make some temporary adjustments for long-term growth, rest assured that everyone's contributions are valued. My pulse pounded in my ears as he opened the floor for questions. Several hands rose. Frank pointed to me, likely expecting some technical clarification that would reinforce his narrative of success. I stood slowly, conscious of every eye in the room turning toward me. The prepared speech I'd rehearsed evaporated from my mind. But then I remembered the email, coding monkeys, and my resolve solidified. Frank, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. I'd like to discuss something important. Can you explain why you claimed budget constraints forced 50% salary cuts for the engineering team while you personally took a $3 million special consulting fee from the global tech contract to buy a beachfront property in Malibu? The room didn't just fall silent. It crystallized into absolute stillness. Someone gasped audibly. A coffee mug hit the floor and shattered, but no one moved to clean it. Frank's face drained of color so rapidly I thought he might faint. The CFO began frantically typing on his phone beneath the table. Michael, Frank managed, his voice strained. I don't know what you're talking about. This isn't the appropriate forum for. I connected my laptop to the projector, the click of the HDMI cable connecting sounding unnaturally loud in the silent room. Let me help refresh your memory, I said, bringing up the first document. Here's the property you purchased 3 weeks ago. The screen displayed his new house, followed by the sales record. And here's the $3 million transfer from ByteForge to ByteForge Advanced Consulting, your shell company, labeled as Technical Services for Global Tech. The murmur started, growing like an approaching storm. A developer in the back stood, then sat back down, clearly uncertain what protocol existed for the situation. There was none. And perhaps most interesting, I continued, clicking to the next slide, is this email where you refer to your engineering team, the same people who worked 80-hour weeks to make this company successful, as coding monkeys who will never know where the money went. Someone near the front audibly whispered, "What the actual fuck?" The room's temperature seemed to rise 10 degrees in seconds. Sarah Wilson, the board member who had previously headed a successful tech company herself, stood up. Her expression remained neutral, but her white-knuckled grip on her water bottle betrayed her. Frank, what is this? Frank's composure cracked entirely. His earlier pallor gave way to flushed anger. It's a misunderstanding. That consulting fee was for specialized external resources. It's all above board and properly documented. Then you won't mind if we review those documents and speak with these external consultants? I asked, because according to project records, every line of code, every design, every technical decision came from our team, the same team whose salaries you cut by half because of budget constraints. Frank slammed his hand on the podium. This meeting is over. Michael, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out. He gestured toward the door where 2 security guards stood awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation unfolding before them. They exchanged uncertain glances, neither moving to remove me. Sarah Wilson stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. No, Frank, this meeting isn't over, but your time as CEO might be. She turned to me. Michael, I'd like to see everything you have. Now. I handed her the encrypted drive. It's all here. Financial records, emails, property documents, the offshore replacement plan, everything. The board should know that I've shared this with 4 other senior engineers who have their own copies. This isn't going away. The other board member, James Chin, who had maintained silence until now, stood up. His expression revealed nothing, but his next words fell like hammer blows. Frank, my office. Now, everyone else, please take an extended lunch. This meeting will reconvene at 3 p.m. As Frank walked out, surrounded by board members and legal counsel suddenly materializing from nowhere, he shot me a look of pure hatred. I didn't flinch. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I felt something close to peace. Dave clasped my shoulder as employees filed out in stunned silence. Many shot me looks ranging from awe to concern. That took guts, he said quietly. What happens now? Now we wait, I replied, surprised at how steady my voice remained. And we see if the system actually works. The next 48 hours would determine whether justice was possible in corporate America. The next 48 hours unfolded with dizzying speed. The board launched an emergency audit, bringing in forensic accountants who commandeered the entire fourth floor. Frank was placed on administrative leave, a corporate euphemism for "we're building the case to fire you legally." Security escorted him from the building that same afternoon, his personal items following in a cardboard box. Lawyers multiplied like digital rabbits, filling conference rooms with urgent whispers and demands for documents. Each senior engineer, myself included, spent hours in interviews explaining what we knew and how we'd discovered it. Did you access systems without authorization? One particularly aggressive attorney asked me, his tone implying the answer would determine my fate. No, I replied truthfully. I used my existing credentials to access information relevant to my work. The global tech project was my responsibility. Understanding its budget and resource allocation was part of my job. By Friday, the initial findings confirmed everything we'd claimed. Frank was officially terminated for cause the corporate death sentence that typically voids golden parachutes and triggers clawback provisions. The company issued a carefully worded statement about financial irregularities and leadership changes to ensure corporate integrity. The board appointed Sarah Wilson as interim CEO. Her first action was to reverse the salary cuts and announce a full review of compensation practices. Her second was to cancel the offshore replacement plan. Her third was to call me into her newly occupied office. Unlike Frank's minimalist showroom of expensive design, Sarah had already transformed the space with family photos, engineering books, and a worn couch in the corner that spoke of actual work rather than status symbols. Michael, she began without preamble, I won't pretend this isn't a catastrophic mess. But what you did took extraordinary courage and integrity. We want you to stay. Lead the technical division with full autonomy and a 30% raise over your original salary. Help us rebuild what Frank damaged. It was a generous offer, more than generous. But something fundamental had broken that couldn't be repaired with money or titles. I appreciate the offer, Sarah. I really do. But I can't stay. Neither can most of my team. Once trust is shattered this completely, it's nearly impossible to rebuild. She nodded, unsurprised. I understand. What will you do next? We're starting our own company, focused on ethical partnerships and transparent compensation, where everyone who contributes shares in the success, for real, not just in company slogans. Would you consider taking Byforge as a client? We still need to deliver on the global tech expansion, and you're the best qualified team for it. I promised to consider it, and we parted on surprisingly good terms. True to my word, my new company eventually did work with Byteforge, but as peers rather than subordinates, with clear contracts and transparent fees. Starting our own company wasn't the triumphant leap I sometimes portray in abbreviated tellings of this story. The truth included many moments of doubt. We worked out of my garage for the first 3 months, using personal savings to fund development while pursuing initial clients. Heated arguments erupted over direction, pricing models, and equity distribution. One night, after a particularly brutal discussion about sustainable cash flow, I questioned everything. Maybe we should have just taken new jobs, I confessed to my wife that night. Starting over from scratch is harder than I imagined. She took my hand and spoke the words that have become something of a mantra for our company. You didn't build this because it was easy. You built it because it was right. 2 years later, our startup, Integrity Systems, employs 35 people and recently secured a $15 million contract. Global Tech approached us directly, citing leadership and values alignment as key factors in their decision. The CTO I had spoken with that night before the confrontation became our biggest champion, steering multiple contracts our way. "I want to work with people I can trust," he explained simply. "We maintain strict transparency policies. Everyone knows salary ranges, bonus structures are clearly defined and consistently applied, and 20% of profits go directly to employee bonuses. We have unlimited vacation that people actually use without guilt. Our retention rate stands at 95% compared to the industry average of 75%. The ripple effects spread beyond our company. 3 other tech firms in our city have adopted similar transparency policies after seeing our success and stability. We've become something of a case study in ethical tech management." As for Frank, the legal consequences caught up with him quickly. He had to sell the Malibu house to pay legal settlements from shareholder lawsuits. The SEC investigated Byteforge, advanced consulting, and found multiple violations of securities law. Last I heard, he was trying to raise funding for a new venture in Singapore, but his reputation had followed him. The investors who lost millions under his leadership made sure of that. Sometimes I think about that day in Frank's office when I silently signed away half my salary. How different things might have been if I'd just accepted it and moved on. I would have never discovered the fraud, never started Integrity Systems, never created a workplace where people can actually thrive without sacrificing their humanity. I would have remained just another coding monkey in someone else's story. Instead, I became the author of my own. The most valuable lesson from this ordeal wasn't about money or even justice. It was about self-worth. When Frank cut my salary by 50%, he was making a statement about my value, one I temporarily accepted because I had tied my worth to his perception. The truth I discovered through fire: your value isn't determined by what someone else is willing to pay you. It's an intrinsic quality that exists independently of others' assessments. Sometimes it takes a profound injustice to realize this fundamental truth. Last month, I received an email from a junior developer at another company. "I watched your video," she wrote. "It gave me the courage to question why our team's bonuses were canceled while executives received record payouts. The CEO is now under investigation, and they're restructuring the entire compensation system. Thank you for showing me it's possible to fight back and win." That email meant more to me than any contract we've ever signed. I've built this understanding into the foundation of our company culture. We don't just pay people fairly. We create an environment where everyone recognizes their own inherent value and the value they create, where no one needs to work 80-hour weeks to prove their dedication, and where success is genuinely shared. The ultimate irony isn't lost on me. Frank's betrayal, intended to maximize his personal gain at our collective expense, ultimately created something better for everyone involved, except him. Sometimes the worst experiences catalyze the best outcomes, but only if you find the courage to stand up for what's right when everything is on the line. Have you faced workplace injustice? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. I personally read and respond to everyone. And if you're currently facing a situation where you suspect exploitation, don't miss tomorrow's video where I'll share the exact email template that got the board's attention within 1 hour. It could save your career and sanity. Subscribe and turn on notifications now, because next week I'm interviewing 3 former executives who revealed how companies systematically underpay their most valuable employees and exactly how to recognize when it's happening to you. Remember, never let anyone convince you that you're worth less than your true value. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do when faced with injustice isn't just walking away, it's rebuilding something better from the ashes and bringing others with you. Your story of standing up could inspire someone else to do the same. What would you have done in my situation?